When I'm giving an online talk or lecture, I like to have things appear on screen around me as I'm talking. And if I'm using slides, I like to make them appear beside me on screen so that I'm still really clearly addressing my audience rather than the picture-in-picture approach that we're very familiar with seeing, which gives precedence to the slides and not so much to the presenter. It used to be that this was only really possible using more advanced video editor for pre-recorded videos or live video production software and hardware if you were doing live presentations like the 8M software or OBS. But recently, PowerPoint and Keynote have enabled users to insert live video as an object within presentations, which means a huge amount of this production facility is available to you just by using Keynote or PowerPoint. And in this video, I'm going to show you how. So with a blank presentation, the way you do this in PowerPoint is go into Insert and Cameo, and then PowerPoint will insert a video which you can manipulate just like another object. So by default, it's going to put you down here in the right-hand corner, which is a little bit sad. But if I add some different elements in here, PowerPoint's going to give me some suggestions on the Designer tab, which are all very lovely. And in parts, it does give you some nice suggestions, including masking your video in a kind of interesting way, and also specific opportunities where you can give precedence to your video over the slide. The circle effect, which is quite groovy. You can even make yourself kind of mysterious and blue, which means maybe you could be a background to a slide that you were creating, which could be quite interesting. But what I would encourage you to do, if you're making slides like this, is to give precedence to your video rather than to the slide. So effectively, you are making yourself in full frame, and then you're making things appear around you, and you're manipulating your image so that it's a bit more dynamic. I'm going to show you how to do this in Keynote, because that's going to be a bit more stable for my machine because I'm using a Mac. So I've got my blank presentation here, and I just go into Media, Live Video. And you can see here, if you don't think about kind of how you're framed in your video, this is going to be a slightly less compelling looking video than the camera that I framed nicely. So have a think about framing and have a think about, bringing in a high quality video feed. And when you're building your presentation, you need to be framed roughly in the same way as when you're going to deliver your presentation. So here I've got a semi-permanent setup, which really helps me. So I know that I'm always going to be roughly in the center. I'm going to be this distance away from the camera. I'm going to be framed head and shoulders like this. And that means if I have things appearing around me, or if I'm moving my image, that's going to be consistent for when I deliver the presentation. So the first thing to do is to take my video and make it so that it's full screen, because of course you are the most important part of your presentation. And this is a very similar process in both PowerPoint and Keynote, and I'll show you both. So the first thing I want to do is have something appear to one side like this. So I'm going to get my diagram. This is my Venn diagram. I'm just copying that in as I would a normal object, and I'm going to put it to the side like this. And then I'm just going to use my animation tools to make it appear on screen. And then I want it to disappear. So I'm going to put my crumble on there. So now, if I just play my presentation and I recorded this, I would have my diagram appearing on screen and it would flutter away. So immediately we've got something a little bit more flashy. But let's try and think about how this would look in more of a lecture scenario. So I want to start my presentation like this so that I'm addressing the camera, and then I'm going to talk about Venn diagrams. So I'm going to have a slide about Venn diagrams, and then it's going to disappear and I'm going to address the camera again. So to build this out, I want to move myself to the side of the screen, and then I'm going to put in a shape, which is effectively going to be my slide. So I'm going to make this the color that I want it. I'm going to add my text. So here's my title. I'm also going to have very interesting quote. And then I'm going to want my Venn diagram. So this is what I want my slide to look like, but I need something before this, which is just me, and something that is after this, which is just me. So we can just copy this across. So I've made 3 versions of this same slide. And this first slide, I want all of this to be off to one side. Now, I don't want to delete it because I want it to move in dynamically when I start my presentation. So I'm going to move all of this off to one side. So I've just selected everything, and then I'm holding down my Shift key, which means it's going to stay in line. Okay? And I'm going to do exactly the same with my video. I'm holding down my Shift key, so it's staying exactly in line. You can see these yellow lines appear when I do that. And then this is my main slide, and then I want it to go back to me again. So I just select everything, again hold down my Shift key so that it disappears to one side. Now if I go into my presentation now, what's going to happen is I'm going to be main screen, then it's going to appear to the left, and then it's going to come back like this, which is fine, but we can do better. We want it to move in so that it's smooth and seamless. So the way we do this is very easy. On Keynote, it's a tool called Magic Move, and in PowerPoint, which I'll show you in a minute, is a tool called Morph. So I'm just going to select all my slides here. I'm going to go into Animate, I'm going to go Add Effect, and then I'm going to go Magic Move. And this means it's going to add in that animation for me. I don't need to do anything. It will work out where the things are and then move them in and then move them out on its own. So now I go into play. It starts like this. Welcome to my presentation. I'm going to be talking to you about Venn diagrams. I can even signal here and I can point things out. And then it disappears to the side. And then obviously I can be building out a more complex presentation from here as well. So to do this in PowerPoint, we also go into Insert, and then we go into Cameo. And Cameo makes you appear in the corner like this. Ooh, look at that. It's weird, isn't it? I'm a banner. I mean, the nice thing about PowerPoint is it does give you these kind of options, and some of them are quite cute. You've also got options up here. I can be a hexagon, diamond, a heart. I feel like I'm having too much fun with this now. Brilliant. Okay, come on. Insert, Cameo, and then we can choose our camera source from up here. And again, we're going to make this take up the full frame. And then we're going to make our slide. So I'm going to use a shape again, put that on one side here, move myself to the left. And again, I can just generate my slide here now. So here we go. This is my very exciting slide. And once again, I can just make copies of this slide, and in the first one I want all of this to be across to the right. Again, I can just hold down my shift key to make sure this stays in line. And I'm going to shift myself here as well. And again, for my second slide, I'm going to make sure this is off to one side. So the way we get our fancy transition within PowerPoint is by going into transitions and morph. And then if we go into slideshow, we progress to the next slide. We have our lovely fancy effect and goes back to normal. And we can then record our presentation directly into PowerPoint this way. Something else you might want to think about is adding in an extra source. So you could add in another camera source, and I'm just going to use my continuity camera here, my iPhone. So I could be demonstrating something on my messy desk at the same time as addressing the camera. So you can have a nice close-up of the pen pot here. So you don't have to think about video as just shooting your face the whole time. You can also think about dynamic uses of video that can enhance teaching in other ways as well. I especially like having a top-down camera set up. I'm just doing it roughly here, but then I can demonstrate things and draw things as I talk. So with a relatively straightforward setup, you can start to get something a bit more complex and a bit more interesting in your presentations. Now, it's worth saying, in the filming of this video, I found that PowerPoint on the Mac is not particularly stable. It was much more stable using it in Keynote. This may be different on a Windows machine, but it's worth saying that this is quite a computationally heavy task to ask of a computer. You're incorporating live video and putting animations on it. So you're really going to want to optimize the software for the hardware. So if you're using a Mac machine, Keynote is going to be optimized for the Mac hardware. Live video production is also a bit more stable on a Mac infrastructure. I'm also a Mac sycophant. So anyway, have a go, have fun, and start thinking creatively about how you can incorporate live video into your presentations.